Good afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 6th of August already. Don't even know where time is going. And if you've just seen me then on another webinar, that was a firm check for their AML summer school. So if you're not registered already, definitely take a look at that because we've got quite a lineup of speakers over the next coming weeks. And we all love AML in bite-sized chunks, so definitely recommend taking a look at that. But I'm joined by the lovely Lee today. How are you, Lee?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I've been enjoying the nice weather, so we've had a bit of some summer, haven't we?
Yeah, but now I don't know about you, but it is so hot. Like it is just so. In fact, I shouldn't be wearing black. Really, that's my own fault. Really, but I am so hot. It's very muggy up here. I don't know what it's like where you are.
Yeah, I think it's the northwest, isn't it? We always tend to get it quite uncomfortable heat, don't we? So it's sometimes. It's not particularly bright here today either. We're
no, we've got overcast and stickiness. We don't get the sun. We just get the humidity. I'm surprised my hair's not like out here at this point. That's all we get.
Especially your back-to-back webinars and you need to schedule them all for the autumn. Just from a hiatus on.
Dear. Now, where should we start? It's been a while since me and Lee have been on the coffee chats. It's been so just crazy, hasn't it? Holidays and all sorts of things. But there's an update that we want to talk about, in particular about the new level 5 with the CPAA. So I'll hand that to you, Lee, if you want to tell us all about it.
So as a lot of people know, we've been working towards the development of our final stage of our professional qualification. It's been a long road, but we're nearly finished with it, and we should hopefully be having quite it's going to be quite a different qualification. It's going to be a very different methodology to kind of assessment, and it's also going to be a different way of kind of delivering tuition and things. But we now have a kind of enrolment date, so we're hopefully looking at 1st of October as our launch date. That's when we'll start taking on students onto the program. Like I said, it's a bit different, so it'll guide candidates through a kind of structured learning program leading up to a final assessment. So you will have a deadline for enrolment, which currently is pitched at the 1st of February. So from 1st of October to 1st of February to register, and then we'll bring you through an online program of training and study, culminating your final exam, which is a remotely delivered exam as well. So keep an eye out on our socials, keep an eye out on our website, because everything should start changing a bit. You should start seeing some advertisements and information on how to register and how to sign up and stuff. So it's been very exciting. We're currently at the point now where we're just putting together the learning management system. So we're having an instance of Moodle developed, so candidates will get access to that, and they'll have a series of pre-recorded webinars covering the entire syllabus, and obviously it's a kind of practice questions, practice tests. We'll also have a load of PDF notes and things to work from, and we'll be holding a series of live tutorials and revision sessions as well with lectures. So you'll have access to that as well. So it's
all exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a full program of study. Covers across the 3 domains of the qualification. So we've got the financial reporting, so it's covering IFRS and FRS 102. Tax, so we look at the kind of tax situations that practitioners typically deal with. So when you've got a small sole trader, or you've got a private individual, perhaps with like rental properties, or you've got a person operating through a small limited company, looking at kind of how somebody gains income out of like a small limited company and the kind of tax effects of that, looking at ways that you can advise a client on how to mitigate tax and how to kind of plan their affairs properly. It looks at compliance, so we kind of spread out the sort of compliance issues that a practitioner needs to know. So everything from AML to fairly kind of simple things that are not so simple when you're setting out, like what you need to put in your letter of engagement, disengagement and professional clearance and how all that works, as well as looking at some of the more periphery stuff that I think a lot of practitioners don't really think about, like cybersecurity needs. So not only your own cybersecurity needs, but also cybersecurity needs of your clients and things like that. Like I said, that training should hopefully cover all of that content and then fully prepare you for the final exam. So yeah, it's been quite a long road, but hopefully it's quite an exciting project that we're offering.
it's a long road, but then I think what stands out for me is that a lot of the textbooks in other professional qualifications don't go into the details so much of running a practice and what that really looks like, and the actual, real world sort of scenarios and things that we're faced with that most of the time, well, definitely in my own experience, you've had to just pick up as and when. And as you say, I'm so happy that AML is going to be brought into the syllabus in more detail, because I think that's one area that's massively lacking just across the board. It's not spoken about enough, in my opinion. And then also cybersecurity, which is a massive risk. I actually had a conversation today with somebody about something that we're trying to implement on this end, to make sure that everything's backed up and that access is restricted and all the rest of it. But yeah, that's interesting. So who then, in your opinion, is going to be the ideal sort of student for this? Is this individuals who, I'm just asking the question of what I think other people are going to be asking, is this going to be for somebody who's already been through the other syllabus, or is it somebody who's already professionally qualified, who wants some CPD, for example? So what's the sort of what does that look like?
So you should already have the recommendation is that you'd have a level 4 qualification in accountancy. So that would be like your AAT level 4 or your CPAA level 4 to start. But we will also accept people that have got sufficient experience in practice. So if you've got 3 years experience in an employed role within a practice, you can start. Or if you've been a practitioner for more than 3 years and you fancy, kind of like you said, doing it as a bit of kind of CPD, as a bit of knowledge top up, you could do that. But we are also hoping that it will appeal to that first kind of camp, the people that want to kind of upskill and kind of progress. But we're also hoping that it'll appeal to people that perhaps have not had that exposure to practice. So, perhaps you've been working in industry for a long time and you're now thinking of entering into practice, but you're a bit unsure, particularly of those kind of compliance issues and those kind of things that you won't really encounter in industry. So we're also pitching at those people that are looking to make that transition, that are already qualified accountants but want to transition into practice. So hopefully it's got wide appeal.
Yeah, and it seems to be, but more and more these days, definitely the circle that I surround myself with, we don't tend to stop learning. It's just not our approach. So any CPD that's available to us, it's a win-win. And even those that are trying to move now from industry to practice, there isn't really, I guess I'm just thinking, there isn't really any sort of bridging exam equivalent.
No. I mean, when you look at the kind of accountancy qualifications, the ACA is always pitched as kind of practice focused qualification. ACCA kind of mix it between kind of management accountancy and industry and practice. But personally, I feel when you look at the kind of sector of the market that like yourself and most CPA members operate in, they're still not covering the things that you really need to know, and the things that a regular practitioner, a regular accountant would never have encountered until they start operating their own practice. Yeah, and it, like you said, money laundering, massive one. Like people, as far as I'm aware, I don't think any major professional accountancy qualification covers AML requirements in any particular depth.
No, and I will stand by that, because I've reviewed quite a number of AML training that's been provided by professional bodies, and yes, it covers the main areas. Yes, it does, and it covers red flags and all the rest of it. But in terms of scenarios of X and just a more detailed viewpoint, no, in my opinion, they can do a lot more. And I'm an advocate for that. You've heard that first on here. But I think there's always room for improvement, specifically on the AML front, and also just touching on the guidance between setting up your own practice and what's actually out there right now. A lot of that information is outdated because the risks that we face now are ever changing. They're ever changing, and with all the policies, etc., that are going through now, and also well, for want of a better word, criminals are getting smarter. They come up with new ways of doing things that are not, again, covered in some of that guidance documentation that's out there. It's new risks that you've got to adapt to, and it's just taking all of that on board, which, yeah, I'm glad to see that.
And a big focus of the qualification is trying to empower professionals to kind of know where to look for that information. So
Yeah.
again, like you said, you can learn it, and then it will change. Legislation's updated, risk indicators change, kind of the profile of criminals changes all the time. So you don't always you can't just have a set thing, a set body of knowledge that you learn. You need to be equipped with the kind of skills to be able to go out and kind of research things and know how to stay up to date. Whether that's kind of judging a particular source of information. It was interesting when we were developing it. One of the conversations we were initially having was around having the assessment as being an open book exam, and allowing candidates to still be able to access the internet and everything while they were doing it, because as a practitioner you do have
access.
and things, these are kind of tools that you have access to. So it was only really pushed back from member engagement, where members felt that the assessment should be closed book. But it's still a big focus for our thinking with the qualification, which we want people to be able to research, find out their own information, find things out for themselves, and to be able to judge those kind of sources of information, to know where to look for information from a trusted source.
I think that's one of the key things that I talk about when I get asked about the qualifications sometimes, and what's the difference between working in industry versus practice. And it's that you're not going to have all the answers to everything. There'll be times when you come across scenarios that you've never seen before, that you need guidance on, and it's where do you get that guidance from, what information, what source documentation, and what to do in that situation. But it's having that almost attitude of, well, where do I find this information, and being pragmatic about it, rather than, okay, well, I don't know what to do in this situation sort of thing. It's just taking that approach and being proactive about it, which you have to do. Absolutely, when you're running a practice.
It's even bread and butter issues. So it's like, well, do you know what the accountancy software's doing something weird with a set of accounts? You're not quite sure why it's allocated something somewhere. Well, do you know where to find a copy of FRS 102 if that's what you're reporting with, or do you know where to kind of look to find an answer to something like that? If it's a tax query, do you know where on Gov website you're looking? Do you know things like that? There's an agent forum on HMRC's website. Do you know how to kind of discern the silly comment you might get on Accounting Web from fact? It's those skills that I think sometimes come from industry you're not always equipped with.
Yeah, no, and sorry, I was just deleting a comment then. You always get somebody on here. So okay, with that in mind, then when we talk about changes, we just had a little conversation before we joined live about the it's going to be the autumn, isn't it? The autumn budget will be October, and what we expect to see there. So just let's go to VAT first, as we were just having a chat about that. So in your opinion, what do you think is going to happen with the threshold? We're just going to get into it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's always fun to speculate. It does seem as though we're going to be in for tax rises. I think the has very much said there's a big black hole in the budget, so I think we can expect there to be revenue raising measures. It'll be interesting because they have already committed themselves to not raising income tax, national insurance, or VAT. But there's a difference between raising a headline rate and also kind of fiddling around with reliefs and rates and all the rest of it. So, I mean, personally, before we started the call, I was saying I'm fully expecting there to be a reduction in the VAT registration threshold. I think that's going to be one that will be targeted. Saying to you, I think that's a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, and we've got a few points here. Oh Jesus. We've got a few points here to note on the sort of approaches about threshold. And for me, I'm always really conscious about my clients, and also as a small business owner myself, what impact that's going to have. And I very much feel, as I said earlier, that small business owners have been almost lambered, but over this past 3 to 5 years, with constant changes in legislation, trying to keep up with essentially what some people might refer to as red tape, and trying to make sure that they're on board with X, Y, and Z. And I feel if they go ahead and reduce that VAT threshold, that it might just be the final almost nail in the coffin to some people to say, I'm stepping away from being a sole practitioner, or a small business owner, a sole trader, because it's just too much. And that other element of, well, if they're going to do that, then in some circumstances, those individuals are going to be facing further costs, because they're going to have to get a professional involved to do the bookkeeping, accounting for VAT returns and submission, and they're hand-holding through that process. When we've already got the likes of MTDs coming in at some point, I'm sure they'll just defer that once again.
That's not what they're saying. They're saying it's coming in. So
that's what they're saying now. And I'm sure, I can't comment on that in its entirety, but we've seen it being deferred before. But it's that almost just additional pressure to me for small practitioners. And I know we spoke about, in some cases, people deliberately do not grow their businesses because they don't want to be VAT registered, because they don't want to hit that threshold, which is now the 90k. And is that going to put people off, or is that going to potentially go the other way?
It's one of these bizarre kind of dysfunction. It's one of these odd things that incentivize these dysfunctional behaviour, and it's it really does affect productivity, because, like I said, there's so many people that will view that as a kind of limit, as a ceiling. They don't want to go above the VAT registration threshold, because it'll upset their pricing, it'll upset their their admin burden. They're going to suddenly have to start submitting quarterly returns. They're going to have to account for that, and they just don't want to do it, so they stay below it. And it's like, well, if they drop that low enough, are people going to then just not have that ceiling anymore? They're just going to kind of think, well, everyone's got to comply with that. It's just part of it. So it's an interesting one as to whether or like you said, will it kind of knock people away? Will people start feeling like, I don't actually want to be in business anymore because this is too onerous? I read a very interesting one that was on income tax, where they were talking about the when you start earning above 100,000 a year. So you might be a professional person. I think the article's focusing on an anaesthetist in the NHS, who was kind of scaling back their hours because they wanted to just stay below the 100,000 thing, because you suddenly start getting hit for your childcare and all the rest of it, and it just doesn't make sense to earn more. And it's this kind of dysfunctional behaviour, and it's whether accepting there's probably going to be tax rising and revenue raising measures. Is she going to try and target things that will try to reduce this dysfunctional behaviour? So it might not be pleasant, nobody wants to pay more tax, but is it kind of going to get rid of these arbitrary ceilings that prevent people from doing more? And I think potentially a reduction in that, if you were kind of reducing it very low to like 20k a year, most people are not going to scale back below that. If they're earning 40, 50, they're not going to, I'm going to drop my turnover to that. So I don't quite know. Positive spin it would be, hopefully these revenue raising measures will help incentivize productivity. But like you said, it might have the opposite effect, where people just feel like, I'm wasting my time. There's no point in doing this.
No, and I know in terms of VAT, like the most recent news has been around from the 1st of January, with the VAT on private schools alone. Do we think they're going to go ahead and do something else? Obviously not from January, because they've got to give well, they don't have to, but they could give further notice. But that has caused so much uproar. I've seen so many Facebook group chats around it, and a lot of people are not happy at all about that. So whether they'll go ahead and do something similar.
Yeah, there's always room to expand the scope of that, isn't there, onto things that are currently zero rated. Another one is kind of bringing up IPT, insurance product tax, up to 20%. Conservatives were increasing that slowly. I don't think people necessarily cottoned on. It's not a big one that people really notice, but it would have a big impact on everyone's lives. Everyone has some sort of insurance policy. But yeah, I don't quite know where else they'd kind of bring things into scope of that, or make them full rated, because at the moment a lot of things that are zero rated I think would be quite politically very controversial to bring in. If you talk about like food,
Yeah, and
that would be quite difficult. The sanitary products, which again I think would be quite difficult. What else is there? There's fuels in the domestic supplies of fuel that are 5%. They're on a reduced rate. I don't think they'd up those, because there's talk of the fuel bills going up anyway, aren't they, towards the end of the year?
No, but I know just in terms of other taxes, with the inheritance tax comments that have been going around, that they've indicated are focused on reduced exemptions in certain areas, and caused again a lot of uproar. Yeah, I don't know, and also capital gains tax. I've just got something up here. Increasing capital gains tax.
Yeah, to kind of normalise it with rates of income tax. I'm not quite sure how that squares with the fact that the UK has some of the lowest private sector investments in the developed world. I don't think it necessarily helped that. So I don't know whether she will target that. It's a fairly easy win politically, I think, for her, because lots of people don't pay CGT, so they don't really feel it affects them.
I'm just looking on here. But one thing that I do want to talk about, and something that I mentioned this years ago, absolutely years ago, to my sisters, of which I've got 3 wonderful sisters, and I don't think they quite grasped what I was trying to get at back when. But I said probably 5 years ago that by the time that we get to pension age, there's probably not going to be a pension.
Yeah, this is the other one, increasing kind of the age at which you can start retiring. Because state pension is one of the biggest items of government expenditure, so kind of increasing that does make sense.
Yeah,
There's also clampdowns on private pensions, on the kind of tax incentives you can get for that, which might come in.
Do you know, there's just not going to be anything by the time we get to that age without putting a Demi Downer on things. It's just like the 25% tax break, that's probably going to go.
We might all be living in virtual reality, so we might not require income. You can just imagine things, and they'll be so.
It's just insane. And I know I was doing some pension calculations the other day. I know it's really sad, but I am an accountant, and this is what we do in our spare time on a Saturday night. We're doing pension forecasts and things. And I looked at the legislation changes within my own private pension, and it said, it used to say at the age of 55 I'm going to be able to withdraw a private pension, and it's now 57. Yeah. And I was like, I've just lost 2 years. Is that going to increase even more? And is it going to end up being 60 by the time that I get to retirement age? Which
is always so bizarre, because it's your own pension.
It's your own pension.
Why there's yeah, but that's kind of the thing. So yeah,
I don't know.
It is mad. We used to, when we were much younger, we used to talk about retiring at 55. That was kind of our goal. But that has kind of edged a bit now. We talk about retiring at 60 now. So it kind of gives you an idea, doesn't it, of how mindsets shift? Because my mum and dad retired they were 53 when they retired. But that feels like unless something happens.
I know, and you used to think to yourself, oh, looking back when you're much younger, you think, oh, that's years away. That's years away. 53. If I retired at 53 now, oh wow, that is all I can say. But I think nowadays, 57 to 60 is pretty much around the average, unless, as you say, you've got additional sources of income, or you've been quite strategic in your planning, or maybe you've been quite lucky in some circumstances. But it does seem to be pushing the bar back all the time. One other thing on here that I've just noticed, oh no, in terms of state pension in itself, just to add even more, news to, this is such a downer conversation, I'm so sorry. That I don't know if I've missed something there, but have they actually confirmed that they're going to be withdrawing state pension for those earning £30,000 a year?
I've not heard that. Are they not talking about the effective tax on recouping the pension?
No, no. Yeah, I'm just doing a Google search here to see if I've missed something, but I've just found something.
We should have perhaps prepared a bit better. Can't quite see anything. That's certainly one to look into, though, because I had heard speculation before the general election that one of Labour's policies might have been to have kind of means tested the state.
That was it.
Which, again, you know, if you want to play devil's advocate and kind of look at it objectively, if you're earning 35 or whatever the kind of limit is, if you're earning an okay kind of wage, should you also get this kind of handout from the state? The mentality is, well, I've paid my tax, you know, paid into the system, but it's not really. That's not how it works, is it? It's there's no pot. It's not a private pension that you've saved into. It's not been invested for you. It's just tax revenue. It's just a benefit that's given out the same as any kind of other bit of government expenditure. And should you really get it if you are earning considerable amount more? I don't know. But then I feel like a lot of people now are feeling very deflated because everyone pays far too much in tax and we receive far too little for it. Really, I think that's the feeling.
Well,
so I don't quite know how much they'll get away with, but they are certainly going to try and raise revenue.
No, and the last bit on here that I've noticed that they could. It depends though, because we don't really. There's always a need to build new houses, and there's a need because we don't have, you know, enough to house all of the bodies across the UK. And the issue that I've found, or that I've read into, is that actually the land is there to be sold, but actually gaining planning permission is something that's putting a bit of a roadblock in the works. But then, are they going to do something around, you know, adjustments to this? The buyer's stamp duty, you know, for first-time buyers, is that going to be amended in any way?
There was, I think, was it Michael Gove in his leadership campaign where he was suggesting that stamp duty should be paid by the seller. You don't know whether that might be something that they decide to bring in, because I mean the system at the moment does kind of penalise people that are upgrading the houses and buying bigger houses, presumably because they've got families and things, and it benefits those that are kind of at the end of their kind of lives and are downsizing and wanting to move somewhere smaller because all the kids have moved out. So it might be something like that where the burden's shifted onto the seller rather than the buyer.
Yeah, and that's interesting.
It depends how radical she wants to be as well, because there's obviously a lot of speculations around things like wealth taxes, whether there could be implemented a wealth tax. So rather than taxing income, it's taxing your overall assets that are held. How practical that would be, I don't know, because like US is one of the few countries in the world where you're taxed on your global income and stuff. So I don't know how well they could go after people if they decided to leave the UK. How much they could tax them on their UK assets, and then there's things like land value taxes, which would feed into wanting to build more. So if you sat on a plot of land and you're not doing anything with that plot of land, you pay the government to kind of have that plot of land. If you start doing something with it, so you build houses on it or you do something productive with it, well then you pay less tax or no tax on it, which again might be quite a good one, because that might incentivize productivity, might incentivize investment if people a lot of these kind of housing developers do sit on, like the land bank, don't they? They sit on a lot of land.
Yeah, they do.
Because they know the value is going to keep going up, and that if we kind of wait another 10 years, the houses will be worth a lot more. So a land value tax could incentivise more building, which would be, I think, all a good thing. It will just be, it's going to be a very interesting October budget, and we do seem to be on I don't know if you saw any of the news yesterday, but stock markets in the US were crashing.
Oh, I saw all that though, yeah.
So they're talking about the US potentially being on the verge of a recession. So again, how that then factors into her decisions as to whether she wants to raise revenue or whether she wants to kind of do a Keynesian kind of, we're going to cut taxes and spend a bit more approach to try and resolve any potential recession.
It'd be interesting one to watch. We're not even that far off, are we? When you think, oh, October, that's months away. It's not. We're already partway through August.
So, recession looming, if you're thinking, of a change of career and setting up in practice and helping support people with all these kind of additional compliance needs, get signed up to the CPAA qualification.
Yeah, well, do you know what I would say though is that generally across the board, as we've talked about before, and I spoke about this with the QuickBooks team back in October last year on the roadshow, that there still isn't enough individuals coming into the industry to replace those that are retiring. And in actual fact, there's not enough bookkeepers and accountants right now to service all of the businesses that are out there. So the opportunity for growth and opportunity for setting up a practice that, that has real value and can support their clients is immense, really. I think now is probably, one of the best times to start your career, really, because you're going to see so much change and be able to learn so much, which sometimes I think, in fact, in my entire career, I've always been quite involved at different stages of crashes and things that have happened in the economy. But that sometimes is how businesses grow and learn. And you wouldn't, if you want to turn that into, something quite light, that you wouldn't have had that opportunity to learn if that hadn't have happened. And it makes you more resilient. So I think now is a good time, definitely, to get your roots into this industry for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and CPA is a great way to get into it. So
yeah. Do you want to? I don't think we've got it in the comments there, but do we have a link to the level 5 or anything that I can point individuals to at the moment?
Just a second, I will get you a link for. We have a form which you can use to register your interest with. And if you fill out this form, we will then send you some additional information as it becomes available. Like I said, we're currently working on the content on the website, so all that will change. You'll start seeing some things on social media as well.
Do you want to just put that in the chat there, and I'll share that in the main?
Can I join the chat? There we go. Maybe. Oh, sorry, I'm not signed into my Google account. Can I just pop it on an email and then?
Yeah, pop it on an email, and I'll just drop that in a second as that comes through.
So I'm getting totally confused. I've got like 3 different emails. It takes a while for me to update when you change your email address.
I know, and because I had circa 8 emails at one point for various different things, it just got to a point where I cannot simply manage all of these different accounts. So just put it all into the one for the business, and then I have that open all day, every day. So anything that comes through, I've got it there. Here we go. I am actually spending some time this week on admin areas to see where I can make some improvements. You can always improve, can't you?
Always, yeah.
Just refreshing. Has that been sent?
It should have, yeah. It's just taking a minute.
Let me check the other one.
I've sent it to your team at inbox and also to your Gmail one.
There we go. It's not come through the other one yet, but it's fine. I've got it on
pop it in. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So if anybody fills in that form, you'll be on our mailing list, and we'll keep you up to date. We'll let you know when registration opens. We'll let you know when copies updated on the website. We're currently preparing a pack with some sample questions and a full detailed breakdown of the syllabus and everything. So that will be shared with you as well if you sign up to that. And obviously there's no obligation if you sign up. It's just to get information or anything like that. So.
Okay, perfect. Right, well, we will end it there because, as per always, we always go over schedule. I should just stop calling them the 20-minute coffee chat because, we just get into it. But as always, it's lovely to have you on, Lee. And if anyone wants to contact Lee, you can find him on LinkedIn. He's also in the Facebook group. If you really can't find him, then go to my LinkedIn, and he's in my connections there. But just Lee on LinkedIn, you can catch him under the CPAA. Definitely use that form to register interest. And any questions, as always, you know where to find us. More than happy to help with any questions you've got to support you there. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, Lee. Thank you once again, and we'll talk soon.
Speak to you soon.
Take care.